The riots in the 80s was completely different from the riots of 2011. The riots in 1981 was all about fighting for a cause, which was basically the police had a law called the SUS law, wherein they could arrest anybody at any time without having any reasonable reason to arrest you. Um, and I believe the riots, even though it was sparked by the markdown occasion in 2011, I believe that it became, after a while, just a reason to loot and try and obtain things, which in 81 it was more a cause. Well, one of my friends got arrested. He was standing outside the cleaners and he was attacked by about 8, 9 police and beaten up. There was just three of us, so it was hard to fight them. Even though we fought, they still got him and threw him in the back of the van and took him away. No, I don't believe the police targeted me personally. I mean, going back, I was targeted by the police because I was actually, I can give you a little scenario. One day I was actually outside the town hall. I'd run from Colaba Lane to get a bus. I was living in Wandsworth. I'd moved to Wandsworth at the time. And I jumped on a number 35 out by the town hall. And it went to Clapham. So there's 37 buses that leave from Clapham to go to where I wanted to go. I jumped on the bus. It was only going Clapham Common, got off, stood at the bus stop, waited for the 37 to come. When I got on the bus, 2 stops after, the bus stopped, and there's a police van. The police stopped the bus, come upstairs, take me off the bus, and said them see me stealing a woman's purse. I don't know how they did that because they weren't at the bus stop when I was getting on the bus. And they actually took me into Clapham Common and beat me up and left me in the common. So I had lots of grievances with the police then. And that's why when the uprising began, you needed to get involved because it was a time when you could get a little bit of revenge. In 2011, the riots, in the beginning it was justified, obviously with the death of Mark. I thought that was like, there's so many deaths in custody and the police, and I believe on a level that the police in the UK, because they're not used to guns, I don't believe they're used to guns. I think gun is still a new thing to the police, and I believe a lot of them are very jumpy because they're human beings like everybody else. And I believe that some police in situations, they will get nervous, just like me and anybody else who gets in a certain position, and you may do the wrong thing at the wrong time. But the difference with them is that they have other people that can cover up. You only have to look at the Hillsborough tragedy where 90 odd people died and the police went to cover up 96 deaths, So imagine a little black man then. If they can cover up 96 of their own people dying, what could they do to a little black man? So things like the Mark Duggan incident, wherein it's a bit sketchy, I think the police them need to be accountable more. Yeah, because in 81, the riots in 81 was caused basically because of the SUS law. What transpired was, because I was actually at the beginning of the riot, so maybe we should have did this earlier, but the riot transpired because, I'm not going to call names, I actually know the names of the people, yeah, but I've just, someone stabbed someone else, yeah, and the guy that got stabbed ran around the corner. As he ran around the corner, there was a police car coming at the other end, and he fell in the middle of the road. The police car stopped, and we all gathered around him because he was bleeding bad. And we was so glad to see the police at the time, and we said to them, look, this guy's been stabbed, can you take him to the hospital? Obviously, King's College Hospital in a police car is like 2 to 3 minutes away. And the police turned around and said, we can't carry him, it's against the rules. We have to wait for an ambulance. This time, the youth's on the floor bleeding, and we're saying, well, you can't do that. This man need to go to hospital. If it was a policeman, what would you do? Him say, well, it would be different. So he said, different? So what's the different? A life is a life. And that's how the actual riot started. So there's lots of stories going around about how the riot in 81 actually started. So in the beginning, when it started because of the decision of the 3 police officers that were there at the time. It didn't come from above. It was the 3 police who was in the streets who didn't take that black youth in their car. So we, as a group, there might have been about 20, 30 of us, we decided to pick him up and take him to a cab station, which was just across like 5-10 seconds away, and get him to the hospital. And the police tried to stop us from doing that. So that car got burnt, smashed up, 3 police get beat up because you can't see a virgin dying on the floor and a policeman who have siren and this thing on him car, if you carry a man to the hospital 3 minutes down the road and you're telling me it's against the rules, so the rules is gonna make this guy die. You know, in the end he didn't die, so I believe we were justified in putting him in the taxi to take him to the hospital. The uprising in 81, we achieved some results because lots of laws were changed then that people are living those laws today. So what was happening then, we got the SUS law overturned. They couldn't just arrest you anymore as a black youth that's walking down the road. So I think we achieved that. Them bring money in at the area. We get youth club, things like that. But yeah, it made the government, central government, sit up and notice that there was a major problem going on in the surrounding communities, which they had neglected all this time. And they were, the people them start living in like bad conditions, slums, things like that. So even though our parents didn't go out there and be boisterous and stand up for their rights, we were the generation that came and stood up. So yeah, I think we achieved. You know, we had Home Secretary come to Brixton, we had inquiries, lots of things that you had Lord Scarman come to Brixton, and the Scarman report, which came out after, highlighted major differences because he came to the town hall and people aired their views, and then he went and they made changes to the law. In the 80s, the uprising them, they made the rules now, the rules of engagement with black people that are going on today. That was the beginning of them showing more respect to black people, because back in the days it was no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So it just goes to show you where the respect of a black man came, because no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. That means well, that's where those 3 lie, we're below their society level. And it made them wake up. It made, like I said, central government wake up and see where there's a nation of people here that are underclass, that are not being treated properly, and they're standing up for that. In the 2011 one, yes, they will change the rules, but will they change the rules of engagement, or they approach these young black youths? Because if you keep shooting the youth's gonna know that if he has a gun and the police come to him, he's liable to die. So he's more liable to pull that gun and decide to use it, where maybe he would just hold up his hand and take a 7 years for possession of a firearms and know that he'll be out in 7 years, rather than actually taking the gun, shooting it, and looking at a 10 to 15 year sentence. So there's a lot of things that, you know, the achievement out of it is not yet, we haven't seen it, but we have seen the difference between 81 and actual now, especially in the rules of engagement with black people and the police, and more prominent black people rising in the community and able to speak on behalf of the black community. No, I don't know if it's because I'm black, because I don't believe in the colored thing, but it's either black and white, plain like a piece of paper, right? I think the police them definitely the training of the police, they will tell you that it's brilliant, but I believe in a combat circumstance it's different. So if they believe that I have a gun and they're coming for me, they're gonna be nervous, they're gonna have itchy fingers. And if the police could be dealing with things on a different level, maybe that youth wouldn't have died and then we wouldn't have had that incident. So the long and short of it is that, you know, every action brings a reaction, and the action of the police in shooting Mark Duggan triggered that rioting. And if the police didn't do that, there would never been a 2011 riots. The police didn't shoot the youth, it would have never started. So that's where I believe training of the police, and more coordination with the community. Yes, the youth allegedly had a gun, allegedly, because no one hasn't proven it yet, but he wasn't shooting. So maybe that split second they could have waited, and you know, it's not like they're saying he took a gun and he was shooting after them. You know, that's the worst part about it. He didn't fire any shots, and he died. Yeah, there are quite a few. There's little small incidents, but the next big one I think was '85 when there was they arrested. This was on Railton Road, and they arrested a Rasta man called Malachi, and the police then proceeded to beat up Malachi, and people were standing there and saying, "So why are you beating him up?" And then a elder Rasta man named Lloyd Coxon came down the road. He was respected by the whole community, like maybe you could say now, you'd say he was a community leader. And he came down and said to the police, why are you doing that to the Rasta, pulling him by his locks and things like that. And they said then proceeded to start beating him up as well. So because of that, and he was so well known in the community, you had the Brixton front line at the time, which maybe at any point during the day you might have like maybe 500 people stand up doing their little thing. Just, it was a meeting point. So, and it was 200 yards from there. So there was a big crowd of youths and things that were there to go and defend that incident with the police and the two Rasta. 2011? Yeah, in 2011, I think the police failed as well. They failed miserable because we kept a thing called Brixton Splash during the day, and it went out with minor incidents. There was a few people that wanted to cause trouble, but I left Brixton at something to 11, and by the time I got home, which is a 20-minute drive, I received a phone call to say the youths were gathering in Brixton. I had spoken to the police earlier, and I said to them, look, I think it's best if you keep as much police on the street as possible today because of what has gone on the other day. And they said yes. By the time I got home, I heard that there was fighting in Brixton. So I came back down, and I was out there from about 10 past 11 till 4:30 in the morning. And I'm very serious, there was no police. There were no police in Brixton at all.